she managed day to day. And then from there, we hired managers. I've been in and out a little bit for the day to day, just between managers and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it was not always like that. Just like every business owner, there's seasons where you need to be more involved, right? And seasons where you need to step in. And then when things are humming and you set up systems, then that's where you could start to back off a little bit. We've definitely experienced that the last 3 years.
Representing Franchise Secrets, Erik Van Horn.
We're live, man. Welcome to the show, buddy.
Thanks, man. This is awesome. I'm super stoked for this, by the way.
Why?
I think I've told you this before, but I started listening to this podcast probably 3.5 years ago. Yeah. So I've just been listening to you forever, man. And then to meet you in Memphis this summer, just kind of cool. So
that's fun, man.
Franchising world.
I forgot that you've been listening for a while. It's fun to, like, I've had other people on too. They're like, Erik, I've been listening to your show forever. And then all of a sudden they're on, and I'm excited to have you on. Like, you're a franchisee at Hello Sugar. And it's one of our portfolio brands at Front Street Equity. And so I'm like, I've been looking forward to this. I mean, like, we got to hang out together, and so this will be a fun one, man. This will be a real good one.
Since the last time I saw you, I've gone up to a 6 on the Duper rating. So
you have not. You've probably dropped to like a 2.6 on Duper.
Yeah, I don't know what it goes up to, but I might be at a 10 at this point. So that's awesome.
So. If you ever are with me in person, we'll probably play pickleball at some point, and anyone out there in the audience, and we're at a franchise show. You've got to connect with me so we can play. My Duper's like a 4.2 and increasing slowly, I'm sure. But I had the boys on from the Pickler. They were on the podcast, and we were goofing around about that. But, I love bonding over pickleball. That's how we get to know people, man.
Yeah.
And I go to all these franchise conventions. Other people golf or do whatever. I go play pickleball and get to know people and make friends.
Yeah.
So
no, it's awesome. Actually, my mother-in-law here has built a huge pickleball community at the Flying Pickle, which is the one local here in Boise. And she actually invited a ton of friends from that to a fundraiser that she hosted at this other event center. But it was a pickleball center, and they all played pickleball. And that was what the fundraiser was based around. It's called Pickled Pink. It was for breast care awareness, breast cancer awareness.
Yeah. What did you say?
Awareness.
We will definitely not edit that out. I like to not edit things out.
Yeah.
That might be a clip on its own. Like, we'll have that as a clip. We'll send that to Brigham, founder at Hello Sugar, and be like, do you know what John's saying on these podcasts?
Yeah. Uncut.
How many podcasts have you done?
0.
Yes.
My first. Yeah, this is raw material that you're about to hear. So
good. That's what we like. We like it raw. My first podcast was with John Lee Dumas like years ago, and I was so nervous because he was big back then, and he still is big. But
well, he's rapid fire.
Let's jump into it. Franchisee of Hello Sugar. Give the audience, like, how many locations do you have? Roughly, where are they, so they can understand, kind of the global picture before we start diving into it.
Yeah, so we operate in Idaho and Colorado. So we have one flagship, which is a storefront location. It's 1,200 square feet, 4 rooms in Idaho, so in the Boise area, a little town called Meridian, suburb. And then we operate 7 locations in Colorado. So we have 4 in Denver, 1 in Boulder, and 2 in Colorado Springs. And I'm sure we'll get into this, but those are Salon suites that we're working on converting to flagships, so storefronts.
Yep. So I like that about one of the things we liked about the model there. And it's also similar to one of our other brands where you go in and you can operate in a salon suite, like a Sola, a My Salon Suites, JC's. There's a bunch of them out there. You can go in, rent a studio there, and then do the services out of there, and then go into the flagship. So, and a flagship, when we say flagship, that is a like normal retail location. So, so you have 8 locations, one flagship being built or working on one is what I understand. Is that right?
Yep, in Colorado Springs. Yeah, and then we're just actively looking for leases everywhere else. So
Are you looking for more flagships, or are you looking more for salon suites?
combination. I mean, we're continuing to grow. We have a development plan in place for more locations in Colorado and Idaho. So we're always opening up suites every year. But we're constantly on the search for flagships. So just as opportunities come up, it's kind of an interesting commercial marketplace and commercial landscape in Denver in particular. So it's tough to find good real estate in certain spots. So, we're just kind of being patient with
It's
that.
nice being able to kind of, be in the marketplace and not have to settle on a C or B location. You can really get into the location that you want, and you kind of know about the market. Let's talk about that. Like, what are the advantages of being able to go into a salon suite, and give us an idea of what Hello Sugar is like in a salon suite, and then let's go into some of the benefits of that.
Yeah. So salon suite, for everyone listening that doesn't know, I'm sure they've heard you talk about Sola in the past. Sola is a salon suite. So what we do is we go in as a business and we rent a 10 by 10, 11 by 11 space within these locations. And that's how we initially start our business. They're only, like I said, 100 square foot, 110 square foot spaces. We hire, 2 to 4 estheticians to operate one room. And then we're flexible enough to add multiple rooms within one location if the market's ready for it and if we're getting enough demand. So we operate in these salon suites. We get up to a certain mark, and then we upgrade into a flagship once, if there's a lease within a reasonable, distance away from us to be able to move in. So
you said going into a salon suite, you can add another room to do services, but that's renting a new suite, or is that putting it in the, because they have,
Yep.
As leases become available, you can, add to it. Do you have any that you have more than one suite in?
We have, we're actually adding a second room to our Aurora, Colorado location. But we have 3 in Denver that are 2-roomers, and then we have 1 in Colorado Springs that's a 2-roomer too. So the way that I like to go about it is go, 1-room suite, get to a point where I'm at a certain revenue mark, and then move from that 1 room to 2 rooms, and then from there go into flagship. But that's just how I've gone about it. Unless it's a gangbuster location, I could go right into flagship.
Today, like, how much time do you spend working on the business as a franchisee, you personally?
How much do I need to, or how much do I actually?
How much do you? Well, both. Like, how much do you need to, and how much do you?
I don't need to spend a lot of time. Maybe 5 to 10 hours a week for all 8 locations. I choose. Well, actually, no, that's probably accurate. I choose to spend that much. Sometimes it seems like more because you're responding to a message here and there. So just kind of, it's throughout the day a little bit if I choose to, but it's really just how involved I want to be. I've set up a manager in Colorado to manage all 7 locations over there, and then I have one in Idaho as well. So pretty, low. I don't know, low. It's not very time consuming, I guess, is all. So it's nice.
So when people are validating, buyers out there, if you're validating, you could hear this and you'd be like, I want to be like John. I want to do 5 to 10 hours a week and have 8 locations of whatever brand it is. And you can go and talk to that franchisee and be like, oh, they're doing it 5 to 10 hours a week. That's what they need to. That's what they want to spend on the business. And they have 8 locations. Boom. I can do the same thing. Second question you should ask somebody like John is, did you start out that way? When you opened up your first location, were you working, 5 to 10 hours a week that first year?
No. For content, I mean, I'll give you our maybe 2-minute story if that's okay.
Yeah.
We when we first opened, it was my wife and I, and she did the day-to-day operations for the most part. As far as when I say that, it's ordering inventory, having syncs with the staff, making sure things are good and that we're running a tight ship. And then I was in the background, finance, accounting, all that type of stuff. And then we had our daughter at the time. She was maybe a year, and then we had our son a year and a half ago. And she was like, hey, for Jackson, for our son, she's like, I just kind of want to be hands off. Like, I'm going to hand this off to you. Right. And at the time, I mean, I've been working at W2 this whole time just because. But, she gave me 3 months notice or so. So I took over the business in Colorado. In Idaho at that point, we had a manager. But Colorado, I mean, we weren't living in the state. We're managing things remotely. So we ended up hiring a manager, and then I managed that manager. That manager didn't necessarily work out, but so I went back in the business and then hired somebody else, right? And now we're churning. But it's been she managed day to day, and then from there we hired managers. I've been in and out a little bit for the day to day, just between managers and stuff. But yeah, I mean, it was not always like that. You know, it's you just like every business owner. There's seasons where you need to be more involved, right? And seasons where you need to step in. And then when things are humming and you set up systems, then that's where you could start to back off a little bit. So we've definitely experienced that the last 3 years. So.
Attention, franchisors and franchisees. There are two really important resources that I want to share with you that will help you avoid costly mistakes and increase your enterprise value. The first is our free Facebook group. It's a community that has over 4,000 franchisees and franchisors in it. When somebody asks a question, they get honest and authentic answers from multiple perspectives. You can join the group for free over at franchisesecrets.com/Facebook. The second resource I want to share with you is if you're a franchisee and you want to be around a community of successful Zs and other brands and in other industries, this is why I created the Franchisee Mastermind. If you want access to the best single and multi-unit owners to know what they're doing, or if you want to be around other multi-brand owners, then you'll want to check out my Franchisee Mastermind. The reason why people join is they want access to my Rolodex, my connections, to each other. They want a shortcut success, both short-term and long-term. Links will be in the show notes or at scalablefranchise.com. Your manager did not work out. So and this is so common out there. Like anybody that's listening, you manage the manager. It sounds great until you have the wrong manager or you hire the wrong manager back to back, which I've done that before. So let's dive deeper into that. What do you mean? The manager, you said the manager did not work out. So yeah. I'm sure when did you hire, or like, what was the hiring process like for that manager that you were going to manage? And then when did you realize this wasn't the person that you thought they were going to be?
Man. Okay. Our manager in Colorado was the first person we've hired full-time just to manage, right? In Idaho, she's an esthetician and also manages the location. So we knew her prior. It wasn't necessarily an interview process to see if she would be a good manager. She just kind of fit into that role naturally. In Colorado, we put an ad out there on Indeed. Didn't have any referrals to go off of, right? So just kind of cold interviewing. And I will say, I don't think that we put the time needed into it. I went on a couple trips during the time we were doing interviews, so I missed some. And so I wasn't able to give my wife kind of my take on things. And she was like just kind of frantically managing the business at that point. I mean, we had grown so big. She was like, I'm done with this. She's like 7 months into pregnancy. So I feel like we just kind of rushed the decision a little bit, if I'm being honest. But she's, on paper, incredible, I think where it started to go south is, I felt like we're just, and this was a learning lesson for us. I just felt like we were really nice, and we just kind of, she's like, hey, I want to raise for doing this. I want to raise for doing that. And I don't feel like we set proper expectations. And so I feel like every 3 months, it was like, she was doing an okay job. The team, the KPIs were looking okay. But she just felt almost entitled to raises for everything that she did. And then she was never willing to actually roll up her sleeves and do any work, which I just saw over time. It was, as an example, if someone needed to move a box in our storage unit, right? She wasn't going to move the box. She was going to let me hire someone to move a box in the storage unit, as opposed to her going to the physical location, actually doing it. And so just little stuff like that. Not much of a team player that way. So I just learned, it was the first person we ever hired. So we parted ways this time last year, actually, November of last year. And then I managed the locations from November to April. And then we hired someone in April, and she's been phenomenal. So really learned from that first hire, what not to.
How long did that first manager work for you?
She was with us for about 10 months, actually.
When
Yeah.
did you, looking back, hindsight's 2020, looking back, when did you realize this is probably the wrong person?
Probably month 2. I prolonged that firing probably for like 8 months, just like telling myself, hey, she would show signs, where I could work with her, she would dive in. And then just, I kept justifying keeping her on, and I'm sure a lot of people do. And I mean, if I'm just being honest, I think I was scared, right? Like I was getting my chops wet as far as being a new owner and figuring out how to handle those conversations. And I didn't know how to go about it the right way. She intimidated me in the sense of, she was the type to where if I didn't handle it the right way from an HR perspective, that she might come after me. And I was a little bit nervous of that, because I'm not a very detail-oriented guy when it comes to handling those things the right way from an HR perspective, like paperwork and things. I'll handle it the right way when I'm talking to you, but as far as paperwork goes, and if I needed anything, so I wanted to make sure my ducks were in a row before making a move like that. So definitely prolonged it longer than I should.
So going back, so now, it's been about a year. What would you go back and advise yourself 3 months into that? So month 2, you're like, seen some warning signs, and looking back now, they were definitely warning signs. You would have had a month of warning signs. What would you tell yourself, knowing the full picture? What would you have told yourself 1 month after those warning signs?
I would have actually executed on the decisions that I had come to in my mind. So I had come multiple times. I'd said, okay, this is it. I'm done. I'm going to let her go. And I had a plan to do it. And then she would do something great. The team would perform really well for a month, and I would keep her on. I would just go with my gut, and just make it faster. And then also I would lean in, which is what I did towards the tail end of her being here. I started to rekindle some relationships with the staff. So that way it was a smooth transition. So it's not like I just let her go cold turkey and I had to rekindle these relationships. I made a couple trips out there to make sure it wasn't a huge deal. And we didn't really have anyone leave as a result, which was really nice. But sometimes you get those relationships that the managers build because they hire your staff. And I didn't want that to be the case. So I would have developed those relationships sooner.
That's a great point, having those relationships with your staff that are below your manager, because it's easy to say, here's my manager, everybody reports to the manager, and then your relationships with kind of frontline team members are cut off. And you kind of want that feedback loop. You want to empower your manager, but you also want a feedback loop to be able to hear from customers how they're doing, and to hear from employees if there's some warning signs. If there's no ability to have that feedback loop, you are at the mercy of a manager, and that manager may hold things out from you.
Yep.
And
Exactly.
What about with customers? Did you have any warning signs with customers? Because I think this is really helpful for people.
Yeah.
Like,
Well,
there's so many people that are going to deal with this or have dealt with this, and I think this is a real helpful conversation to have.
Well,
so warning signs that you heard or customers may have alerted you to.
Well, what was interesting about customers is that they actually really liked her. So that was the tricky part, right? Is they liked her, but she didn't have, behind the scenes, there were other things going on, and she was really good at that. So I didn't really hear anything bad from customers. From staff, I would hear of her hanging up on people, which was not the greatest. I actually did hear that from a couple customers. If someone got, if things got escalated, conversation turned into some type of argument, then she would say, okay, like, you're acting this way, I'm going to hang up on you. And then she would actually hang up on people, which as an adult, I've never heard of. So anyways, just very interesting. So that was, I've heard that from multiple staff. She let a couple people go just out of, I think, her feeling like her dominance was being threatened, I guess. Like, she liked to feel like she was the mother hen. And there were some staff members who, were pretty dominant personality types. And I think that didn't jive well with her either. So definitely some warning signs.
This is I did not know we were going to go here in this beginning of this conversation, but I hear this over and over from franchisees, and we talk about this in the franchise tribe mastermind, the mastermind I have for franchisees. And so this is important stuff. And I'm guilty. Like, I'm grilling John because I've done this and I've done it multiple times to different degrees. And I'm just, so as I'm asking him these questions, it's because I have experience of making the wrong decisions. I've made some right decisions, but I've made some wrong decisions. So this is good. All right, let's go back to the advantages. What are some of the other advantages of opening up in a salon suite before you open up in a flagship?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing is I'll say two in particular. One, you're building up your clientele as you're looking for a storefront space, right? And then two, you're mitigating your risk by just putting, it's way cheaper. You don't need a loan most of the time to open up any of these suites. And so you're starting your business and testing out an area before you commit to a flagship. So I think, when we first started, that was probably a bigger deal than it is now because we didn't have any sophisticated mapping software. Now we can confidently go in and say, okay, this is going to be an amazing spot for a flagship. Before we couldn't say that. So it was literally just like shots in the dark, right? And I have 1 or 2 locations as a result from opening 2 years ago that I probably could move if I wanted to. And that's another, thing with suites. You can move them very easily. There's suites for the most part in most metro areas, even small towns now, they're getting these salon suites. And so you're very flexible to move into these different suites if your current location isn't working out. So it's very, it's very cost effective to move into suites first. So I would say those, you're testing out the area, it's flexible, you see how the market does, and then from there you make your big moves.
I think it de-risks it as well as you're testing. I mean, I see it as a de-risk because you're spending money marketing.
Yeah.
You get to see the market demand in a particular area. Talk about marketing. Like Brigham's a pretty sharp guy. He's a pretty sharp founder. I love that guy.
Yeah.
I beat him at pickleball all the time. So I hope he listens to this. He's not easy to beat, but he's definitely beatable.
Yeah, he's actually he got obsessed about pickleball for like 6 months. He played 4 hours a day. So
that's good. That's good. That's a good minimum amount to play when you're obsessed.
But from a marketing perspective, as an owner, I mean, to be honest, I don't do a whole lot. I don't know if I should feel bad saying that or feel good saying that, but I really rely on our systems. I mean, we have Brigham, the founder, for anyone who hasn't heard of Brigham or Hello Sugar, he's the founder. His background is actually in marketing. So he taught kind of like a digital nomad course at the college that I went to, and that's how we originally met, actually. So his whole background is in marketing, mainly digital marketing. But within Hello Sugar, there's an ads team that, we choose to pay the ads team. It's just they're paid on performance, so paid per completed appointment. And that's just what I've done. They advertise on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. So that's worked really well for me. And so I haven't needed to do a whole lot, and they have it nailed down. So it's worked.
So also want to bring up, you were a franchisee, in the beginning since 2021. And then you also started working at the corporate office on helping franchisees onboard. So I want to make sure that the audience knows that, you're helping franchisees as well. So is that, what's that like, being a corporate employee and a franchisee? Because it could be contest. Franchisees think like we franchisees, we think corporate is always doing things wrong. Like they're never doing enough. They're not doing it right. They're not paying attention to my stuff.
Yeah.
And then on the corporate side, as a franchisor, you're like, man, these franchisees, if they would just listen and do what we say works, if they would just focus on executing versus trying to reinvent everything, it would be really good. So there's give and take with franchisees and franchisors, and there's a unique relationship. So now you straddle both. And I've done that. I've been a franchisee and on the franchisor side, corporate side in the past, so I know what it's like. But from your perspective, what was it like being a franchisee and then going on the franchisor side?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't have done it unless I was moving on to work with a great team, because I was at a great company before. And I think what's interesting about our team in particular is that the majority, probably 70 to 80% of our team is actually franchisees as well. So I'm not the only one, and so I really liked the idea of having some type of influence at the corporate level, right, internally. And so that's one of the reasons, it drew me to that. And also I just had such an affinity for the brand. I wanted to be able to talk to new owners and really coach them through the process of onboarding. But yeah, it's interesting, I mean, there's what's interesting sometimes is at the corporate level, I'll say but we are always looking to add the most value to franchisees. And I can say that wholeheartedly. There's nothing going on behind the scenes that people shouldn't see, I would say, which I'm really proud of as a team. We're like genuinely looking to innovate and always, make sure that every dollar that comes from a franchisee to the corporate team is actually being utilized and 10x'd, which I think is awesome to be able to say, honestly. But there are some things, whether it be a marketing idea or, our loyalty program, things like that, that I individually as a franchisee might not totally agree with, but I have to look at it from the franchisor level. And I have had times where at the franchisor level, like on the corporate team, I agree and it's a good business move. But as a franchisee, I'm like, for our particular states, I don't know if that's the best move. And so it's like I kind of have these split opinions every now and then. But I need to put on that hat for when I'm, who should I be making this decision as, right? So a corporate team member or as a franchisee. And so I've had to differentiate a little bit, but it's been really fun. I've loved it. So
I've had the opportunity and the privilege to be around a lot of different franchisors, franchise founders, interview franchise founders, vet franchise founders to work with us at Front Street. And, I've had the mastermind where I've worked with franchise founders. So, I've met a lot of them. I get to see the insides of a lot of organizations, and I really appreciate the Brigham's leadership. I see from all my interactions with him, he's a really solid leader at the corporate level, and he's making decisions that are for the franchisees, and so. What would you say as you've been kind of on the outside as a franchisee experiencing his leadership, and then also on the inside of the organization? What do you see as his some of his greatest strengths and qualities, and on both sides, being a franchisee and being inside at corporate?
Yeah, if there's one story I could tell about him, that kind of encapsulates his.
As long as it's embarrassing, you can tell it.
Yeah. No, he. When we first opened, right? I mean, for context, we were the first out-of-state owners, along with his friend opened up in Houston, and we opened up in Idaho, maybe within a week of each other. And then he opened up in Nashville, Brigham did, just to test his own concept out of state. We were working towards break even. We opened in July of 2021.
Okay, you don't tell any break even numbers though.
No. I won't say anything. I won't divulge. No, we're good. But we opened up July 2021, and we went back. We sunbirded is our term for it in Idaho that summer, and then we moved back to Arizona in November. Like we were still working towards break even point. I remember going on a walk with Brigham, and I could sense that he was more worried than we were. He told me that he had sleepless nights over our location, and I was like, wow, man, no way, like. I haven't even had sleep. Like I'm not that worried about it, but he was so concerned, and he to this day, he has that level of concern for everybody that comes into the system. I'll get random texts from him saying, hey, how's this location doing? How's this guy doing? And he just is always checking in with people, always wanted to travel. So he, under his leadership, like I think the biggest thing that comes out is one, he is sharp as a tack. I mean, he is on top of everything from a numbers basis. Like he knows everything. His decision-making process is very fair, extremely fair. Even like creates committees to make certain decisions, but more than anything else, I think he really cares. And he won't make a decision out of greed. He'll make a decision for the benefit of a franchisee. That goes to areas, that goes to adding on laser, which is something that a lot of other people know that we have now, but he really looks at things from a fair perspective and always wants to make sure it's in favor of the franchisee.
Yeah. And I've seen that as I've worked with him, and we're like, hey, you should look at this market and open up this market. And he's like, I'm not sure. So he'd probably thinking, I don't want to have sleepless nights. So he's, I would say he's very, very franchisee focused. I want you to dive a bit deeper into his decision making. and maybe it's his decision making or how decisions are made at corporate and taking feedback from franchisees. But like, how does all that happen? Because I think franchisees, they don't know all that good franchisors do, and I think it'd be helpful for franchisors out there to understand like some of the decision making that happens as a good franchisor.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's a great question. Last month, we actually had a survey go out to all of the owners on, 9 different topics, right? And we collected all their feedback, and I was actually assigned to gather a group of owners that we can meet with later this month to get their feedback on their answers, their responses to the survey. So we're always trying to do that type of stuff. We have a WhatsApp group thread that we're always hearing feedback from owners. We always take it to heart. We always do our best to implement it where it makes sense. Now, I mean, to your point though, and I've heard you say it's like, it's not like everything that comes out of a franchisee's mouth is gold, right? Like there are different perspectives, but I do think it's healthy to hear all of them. And as it's, he listens to all of them. We as a team listen to all of them. He really does a good job sifting through what is emotional feedback versus something logical that might be systematized and benefit the larger group. And I think that's something he's not a very emotionally driven decision maker. Like he really takes in all the opinions and stuff, but he makes it, he has it make sense for everybody if he's going to implement something.
What advice would you give franchisees who have a good franchisor that really is looking out for their best interest and as a franchisees as looking out for everybody's best interest, but they think they have the greatest idea or the worst thing that happened, and it's not really a big deal, but it's not a huge deal. They're focused on minor things, those franchisees, or they want to get ideas pushed through that really aren't best for everybody, but it's really important to them. And, I think about that, like if every franchisee was really pushing their own agenda, you had 100 franchisees in a system, it'd just be a disaster. Corporate would, and, the corporate office, the corporate team would just be chasing their tail, trying to satisfy every franchisee's every wish. And I know we have a lot as a franchisee. I've got a lot of things that are important to me, but I know I can't make everything that's important to me important to the corporate office. So how does a good franchisor, good leader, good leadership team sift through that and tell franchisees no or not now?
Yeah, I mean, one, I think it's hear the opinion or the thought first, and validate it, and then see if there's anything that if they don't feel like it's something that can be implemented to the greater organization, maybe there's some flexibility in what we're doing in that location to be able to help that individual franchisee. So I would say just kind of piece it out. Like if there's 100 franchisees and you're hearing 15 to 20 of them say the same thing, well, maybe that's an actual problem that we can start to create systems around. But if it's just 2, 3, 4, maybe we just work with them individually and see if we could flex a little bit, to be able to help them out. So I think it's just, trying to see it from a greater level as opposed to reacting to every individual person and just seeing if there's a theme that comes up and using that to make greater decisions for the whole work.
Good. I like it. I want to shift gears now and talk about the flagship, the retail location. How big is it from a square footage perspective? How many rooms is it? What's the staffing model look like there versus a salon suite?
We have it's 1,200 square feet. We have 4 rooms. So 4 service rooms, little lobby when you walk in, 4 service rooms, break room, bathroom. Only 1,200 square feet. And we have 6 staff members at that location. So we could probably hire, a 7th or an 8th, but each one of those 6 has a very healthy schedule, very happy. Our retention rate is very high at that location, I think as a result of it. So I'm pretty slow to hire a little bit, which, has its pros and cons. But we had, when we had a 2-room suite across the street, actually from our new flagship, we had 4 people. So we hired 2 additional ones to help with the demand increase at this flagship. So
I want to ask a question. I got to be careful on how I ask them, because I want to understand customer demand at that location, going from like a salon suite to the retail? How far away was it from your salon suite, and did it pull from that one? Did you close down that salon suite when you opened up the retail? How did that work?
Yeah, so we closed down the suite and then rolled all those customers into the new flagship.
Okay.
So it was only half mile away. So it was
Cool.
it was seriously like the shopping center across the street. So
Perfect.
very convenient. So yeah, I mean, we're right on a busy street, and we get a lot of organic pull from that. So we have not adjusted our marketing spend at all. So same marketing spend, probably double the amount of leads. So that's the benefit of moving into a storefront and getting those organic leads. So definitely makes sense for people to make that move.
What are your plans? Like, you've got 8 locations now, working on another flagship. What would you like to finish the year at? And then as you look to 2025, what are some of the goals? Is it kind of stabilize what you have now, or is it to continue to grow? What does that look like?
Yeah, we're continuing to grow. We signed a development plan for 9 additional locations in Colorado, and then we'll do about 2 more in Idaho as well. So our plan is to do 2 or 3 more suite locations next year, and then a flagship or 2 next year as well, just as opportunities arise, and then just continue that trend for the next, probably 3 or 4 years to be in full growth mode. And then as we get more leases in place, help, stabilize those locations. So
now this is a softball question because I know the answer. You have not mentioned receptionists. Like in no part of this conversation on payroll, on staff, on team members have you mentioned a receptionist.
Yeah.
What's the deal?
Yeah. So storefronts, we don't have receptionists. He used to. We don't have a physical receptionist at any of our locations, which is awesome. And for the suites, we don't have receptionists either. But the estheticians never have client numbers either. All of reception is handled offshores in different countries. And so as an owner, I don't need to think about it. I don't manage it. It's just a reception fee that I pay for every completed appointment that they book. So it's awesome.
How does that work on the back end? You pay a receptionist fee for a booked appointment.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And
so,
explain that.
Yeah. So
it sounds too good to be true.
Yeah, it sounds too good to be true. That's actually the case though. So I get an invoice as part of my franchise fees. Essentially, one of them is just for reception. I pay, a certain amount per appointment completed. So it's just a line item. If I have a question about it, I could ask the team, but that's pretty much it. Now, there are going to be clients who want to speak to the owner or speak to a manager. And so we do use Zendesk to keep track of tickets and, conversations. If I at any point want to look at a customer's journey, I can go look at that customer in Zendesk and get a hold of them. Or if they want to get a hold of me, I have a manager tab that I look at, or my managers actually now look at regularly and can contact them. So it's kind of out of your hands.
What's the culture like at a brand that has franchisees and franchisees and corporate employees, like as corporate employees? Like, what's the company culture like if you had to define it? And how important is it?
On the corporate side or at the franchise? Corporate. Oh man, it is a blast. It's a group of people that loves to travel, group of people, single individuals, people with families, doesn't matter, diverse group. So it's a blast. We're always joking around. We're having a good time. We like to get together on different trips. We always get together every year at Bear Lake in Utah and have a kind of a company retreat. So it's fun, man. It's very lively. And we just like to joke around. It's a lot of that. But I mean, when we need to be serious, we are, and we make decisions, but we're all just genuinely really good friends at this point. But yet we respect each other's roles. And I feel like we all play a different role at the corporate side. And so that's always, that's always respected. And I feel like we listen to each other as well. So it is very fun.
And what's it like at the with franchisees?
Yeah, it's honestly very similar. So a lot of people who have been attracted to Hello Sugar, seem to have, there's a bunch of different types, right? I'm not saying there's a certain type, but generally just people that are optimistic, fun, willing to roll up their sleeves and go to work. Every year we have a franchisee retreat. So this last year we went to Belize. So all the franchisees are invited with their families. We try to make it very now that we're getting bigger, accessible places, so we can't go to these wild places. But this year we went to Belize, had a bunch of people bring their kids. The year before that, we went to Iceland and just took RVs around the whole island. And then the year before that, we rented some catamarans and went around Tahiti. So, so we've had 3 years now. This next year coming up, we'll see where we go. Might go to Cancun or something, but we always do that. We have monthly team meetings like franchisees. We all get together and we always make sure that we're in sync.
How do you get better as a franchisee? I know how I've done it. I know what I tell people to do, but like you as a franchisee, let's say you didn't have access to the corporate team. You didn't have access to Brigham like you do there. How do you get better as a franchisee?
How
do you make sure you're in the top as a franchisee?
Yeah. I keep track of all of my KPIs. So we have a dashboard that we're able to look at as owners. It's really easy to see how your locations are performing compared to others, right? So I always want to be at the top of those charts. And then from a personal level, I want to make sure that I am a great people manager. So I actually I have a business coach I pay. So I meet with him every other week. And then for a long time, the company I worked for before gave me a coach. So I was working with 2 coaches at the same time. So I put a lot of time into my own personal leadership development. So that way I could be a great people manager, because at the end of the day, I mean, that's a lot of our business, right? We're managing people, making sure that they're happy and satisfied. And I just want to make sure that I'm the best one possible. And as a result of that, our KPIs will always be top of the charts. So looking at data, managing people.
I like that. Haven't told you. Most people don't know. Didn't post it on social anywhere, but I just spent a few weeks ago, spent 3 days with John Maxwell. And John Maxwell is he's a leadership guy. He's like the leadership guy. And I spent a lot of time with him. I got spent one-on-one time with him. I actually went with the CEO. I went to the football game with the Falcons and the Chiefs, and we were on the 50-yard line on the 15th row up. So, I got to spend a lot of good quality time with John. Yeah. I've read a lot of his books, and now here I am spending 3 days with him and like 50, 70 other people. And he was just present the whole time. But he just, it just reinforced in me the importance of having a coach, of reading books on leadership, of like sharpening yourself, and like just being a better people manager. So again, I didn't post, nobody knew that, but as you're talking about that, I'm like, I love being around people like John Maxwell. I'm going to be around him again first part of the year. I'm going to be, in a different country with him as he's speaking to some presidents. And so just being around people like that is important. And it doesn't have to be somebody as big as John Maxwell. That's not normal. That's not my normal month is spending time with people like him. I've got other people that are business partners of mine, past business partners of mine, friends that are great leaders and listening to podcasts and stuff. So talk about that personal development a little bit more, your business coach. Like, what are some of the things that you've learned from them, or things that they've just helped you through?
Yeah. Oh man. I'll try to make this concise, but really, I think one of the biggest ones is my decision making. I tend to prolong decisions, with my manager, right? But having a coach in place, I got my coach after that, by the way, or kind of midway through. He helps me kind of come to conclusions on things. I'm the type of person that needs to talk it out to get answers, and I've known that about myself for a long time. And as much as my wife loves me, she doesn't want to talk about Hello Sugar all the time. So
I can't believe it.
Yeah, she's like, no, I'm done. Like, look, I'm focusing on the kids. But yeah, so I think just having that other person there to just kind of talk through things, and they, whether it's a coach or a trusted friend or whoever it is, I think having that outside perspective, because if it's just me, then I get the blinders on sometimes, and I kind of pride myself a little bit for being self-aware, but I'm self-aware enough to know that I'm not always self-aware, right? And I don't always have the answers, and having someone else there that you trust, even if they're not a business coach, right? Like a lot of times just an honest opinion from like your parents, right? Or something like, even if they're out of context, like just explain something. What they say might not even be the answer, but by them saying it, you might just receive some type of inspiration. And so I think a coach has kind of helped me to be able to listen to someone else's opinion, value their opinion, get out of my own way a little bit. Also, I do listen to other podcasts. I mean, I've said I listen to yours. I like to just kind of keep a pulse on what other people are doing. So reading other people's stories as well kind of just helps me just feel like I'm either on the right track, not on the right track, should make some decisions, make some moves. So yeah, I mean, I think front row dads, I talked about this before, right? Like being a balanced human being as well, I think is extremely important. If you're over rotating in any aspect of your life and focusing too much on business, you're going to make rash decisions, I think. And so I think it's very important to have hobbies, very important to focus on your family, very important to focus on, your religion, if you are religious or whatever that looks like. So being balanced, I think, helps you be a better business owner as well.
Well, that's a shout out to John Vroman at Front Row Dads. That's a group that is one of the most incredible groups. I would encourage any father out there to check out frontrowdads.com. Absolutely love John, the founder. Get on his podcast at the very least. Follow John. And an amazing human. I've made incredible friends in that group. And it's like the least expensive, most amazing group ever. So dads out there, check out Front Row Dads for sure. What other podcasts or books have had impact on you?
Shoe Dog, actually, by Phil Knight. Yeah. That was one I read when I was in college. Actually, I've read it a couple times since. I think just, you talk about being innovative and just going for something, going for a dream. That was one. Again, I really like your podcast. I listened to what is it? It's called Franchise Empires. So he's a good one too. I have a couple of various ones that I just kind of go in and out of. So yeah, I mean,
there's a good one out there called All In. All In's a good, like if you want kind of a global, you got people that are real conservative and more liberal, and yet there's respect, which you don't see very often. It's business and private equity and venture capital and current events. Like All In is a really solid one. They have incredible guests on there too.
Let me get the name of this. I do listen to your buddy Justin Donald on the Lifestyle Investor. Shout out to that.
Justin. Justin and I have a mastermind together. He's got another mastermind separate from that, but check out the Lifestyle Investor. Yeah. Justin's that one's great. Dear friend. It's not as good at the pickleball court as I am, but hey, that's okay. He'll get there. But yeah, he's another one to listen to for people talk about franchising being a passive investment, which I am completely against. I don't think it's a passive investment yet. I've not found one that is, but if you're interested in passive investing, check out the Lifestyle Investor.
Yep. And then I also listen to My First Million and then Business Untitled. Business Untitled is kind of a new one for me. So
okay, I'll have to check that one out. My First Million is a good one as well. Yeah. They're funny. They got some good back and forth. They got some great guests on there as well. Well, any last bits of wisdom for franchisees, for franchise buyers out there? What would you tell a franchise buyer that is wanting to buy a franchise or think they want to buy a franchise, or they're going through the process right now? Any wisdom for that buyer?
Yeah, I was actually thinking about this morning. I think about this a lot. I think there's a lot of great businesses out there. There's a lot of great business concepts out there, and a lot of it does just come around personal fit. And so I think, if you're looking to buy a business, see if it fits for you, do a lot of due diligence. You always talk about validating, right? Look behind the curtains a little bit. Look at some of these brands. There's a lot of amazing brands out there. I happen to be with Hello Sugar, right? But I know that there's a ton of great brands out there, and just validate, see what fits for you. And I think just cast a wide net to be able to see, as many brands as possible. So that's what I would say. Just have an open mind.
Good stuff. All right. Go check out Hello Sugar. What's their website? HelloSugar.salon.
Salon.
I knew it was different. I just couldn't remember what it was. So, man, you did awesome for your first podcast interview. I'll have to get you set up on some more. Sound good?
Thanks, man. Sounds great. I'm here for it.
Thanks for listening to the Franchise Secrets podcast. Links to everything can be found over at franchisesecrets.com. And if you want my help with anything from starting your own franchise to growing your current franchise business, please visit scalablefranchise.com.